was just thinking about how like reconnecting with my roots has been such a big part of my life, and especially my healing and recovery journey, and especially surviving the stuff that I have over the last couple of years. My Irish roots specifically, but I have more and more strongly over the years, over the past like 10 or 15 years. And I had an uncle who did a family tree for us a while back. A beautiful, beautiful freaking gift. But just this morning, I was thinking about how, about the luck of the Irish, and there's major emigration from Ireland in the 1800s and 1900s. Especially with the famines and the things that happened, the potato famine and such, and just thinking of in terms of recovery, like as communities, as individuals, as families, like what is it that the Irish did, and any people that have lost their homeland, or had like gone through disasters, personal or collective. It's like, what are the things that people actually did to recover from these kind of situations? And the number one thing is just, I'm in my meditation, I'm in my prayer mode right now. I'm in my snuggle mode. Step off. People come together, man. That's how they've overcome depression, like social depression, like in the 30s and 40s. It's like when people come together and lift each other up. It's how we overcome every societal problem. Like we're not made to do this shit alone, man, and we're not made to do it with toxic people and abusers and criminals either. And you need to be separated out. You need to not have access to vulnerable people. But coming together has always been the thing. In power in numbers, and in love and connection and empathy. It's always been the fucking thing. Pull people out of every freaking disaster. Coming together, if you're on your own, coming together with God, with Spirit, coming together with your inner child and healing that, being the parent that you never had. In so many cases, that's like big work that we're doing right now. But it was just crazy how it clicked this morning. So I was thinking of. I was thinking of one of my favorite authors, one of my favorite books of all time. It's called Tis, and it's by Frank McCourt. And just all these threads, man, all these threads of healing and life and destruction and trauma and loss and emigration and losing our homeland and what did people do when they were being oppressed, when they were in poverty, when they had the English always at war and trying to claim their land and doing all the crazy shit that the empires, it's the shit that empires always do. Steal, kill, and destroy, and claim other people's land for their own. I think it's a big part of why the U.S. is going through such horrible karma right now, collectively. And if we don't make amends to Native America and the descendants of black slaves and other peoples, I mean, obviously there's been tons of horror shot behavior since then, but it's like the two big ones, dude. Collectively, we need to make amends somehow. We need to at least acknowledge it. That this country is founded on genocide and slavery. There were some ideas of freedom, but genocide and slavery were the real cornerstone of everything. And until we clean that mess up, until we at least acknowledge it, man, karma's gonna rip our asses apart. All of us, no matter where we come from at this point. It's the country is collapsing. It has been visible for decades now. But coming together, acknowledging our wrongs and cleaning up our messes and fixing harm that we have caused, dude, it's the key. It's the key to everything. It's the key to progress. It's the key to evolution. It's the key to a happy life. And in terms of like short-term healing and something that just clicked, because I'm going through some shit that is not for public consumption and not appropriate for family and daytime TV by any stretch, but just tapping into all this stuff, man, and like, well, what did my people do? What did my culture do? What did my people do when they were going through things like this? And like all these things are popping up. I started writing again recently, thanks to one of my favorite people on fucking Earth. I mean, like just in the past several months, after 3 decades without writing, which is one of my deepest gifts spiritually from God, from the work that I'm doing here, and again with astrology. Astrology is such a gift, man. I just realized this a couple days ago. That happened on my last Saturn return when I was 15. When I stopped writing, and the reasons that I stopped writing is because my Chiron wounding, my freaking Taurus in the constellation where it was at that point in my life, and now it's been freed up by the power, by the power of the tower. Don't get into that too much. In the water, the ocean, fucking magic. Magic. That's what Irish had. We had luck, we had magic, we had song, we had dance, we had each other. Even when things were horrible and that wet, soppy fucking winter was going on and on and on, that made everything so green and beautiful, but it made it really difficult to function and do things a lot of the times outdoors. Created a lot of the mud and poverty and mess and just the physical reality of life on the island. That was very much a third world country, like economically and in terms of the cities and stuff like that, up through the 1900s. Economic devastation, like depression physically and in terms of the economy. And they often overlap because when you don't have the resources, when you can't expand, when you can't feed your family, when you can't do the things that you need to do because of the physical strains of geography, weather, the financial and artificial constraints of economies and things like that, it creates those feelings of feeling defeated and wanting to give up and being stuck in these ruts and just going over and over and over through the awful situations that we're in, which underlie and inform depression so much of the time. And then these things are passed down through generations, and through our DNA, through our culture, through the things that our parents and grandparents teach us and don't teach us. You know, a lot of times it's unknowingly, because most normal people want to do well by their children. They want their children to succeed and thrive and grow and, you know, pass them up in every measure that they can, if they can. That's like normal and healthy humans do that. Our lineage is it's really worth looking into, man. We're going through tough times. If you can, look it up through your last name, and you know, even intuitively, if you don't have family, if you don't really know your family tree and stuff like that, intuitively, and just like looking up through our names can be really, really powerful, really informative on a lot of this stuff. And there's details and keys in there, and this is what society is supposed to do, and what family is supposed to do is teach us how to navigate the world and how to overcome things like this. Family and society is not supposed to be... Family especially are not the ones that are supposed to be destroying their own children, their own grandchildren. Like toxic doesn't begin to describe it. Pathological in ways that, like, if this was a big thing and had been ongoing for a lot of human history, none of us would have survived. It seems to be spreading in this modern era for some reason, but I think it's a combination of it spreading, selfishness is getting endemic, but it's also a lot of these patterns are just becoming more visible, especially now that we have, you know, social media and psychology and sociology, anthropology. All these things are learning so much more about all these related issues. But culture is supposed to be a roadmap to help us navigate the world. And instead, it often turns into a constraint that people end up getting bound underneath and inside of. But if you're having a hard time, look into it. Look into your traditional culture. If your personal family isn't connected to your cultural roots, or if you're not, or if you're not sure what they are, like you can find out a lot by your last name, and whatever you need to do to kind of dig into that, because it obviously it changes when there's like marriages, births, deaths, etc. And most of us are mutts, like especially us Europeans. There tends to be a lot of mixed blood from the European countries, but there's part of a bigger conversation, this idea that there's like such a thing as white culture and it's just flat, and it kind of is the way it the way that we have it here in the United States and a lot of Europe, but especially in the US, like it's just consumption. Consumerism is the culture, it is the religion. Just consume, consume, consume. And your value is how much you consume, how much you produce, the numbers attached to your accounts and stuff like that. But every single European culture, and you can get really fine-grained with this, they had and have their own cultures, that are often very, very distinct. You go from places like Ireland to Britain, and then to like France, Spain, Germany, Austria, Hungary, up into the Scandinavian countries. They had like radically different cultures, one to the next, even though the people might have looked fairly similar. And now that there's been so much like melting pot action for a couple hundred years, especially in terms of us like white-skinned people, like it can be hard to distinguish. But when you start getting back into those roots, man, there's a lot of magic and a lot of power. The more fine-grained you get, and you can find stuff out about your family, about like if you have an opportunity to travel over there, or just even like researching, find out people, or find living people, even better, living people that are tapped into the history of the places and the small towns and villages and what they did and how they lived and who they were. Like, there's a lot of magic in that, a lot of power in knowing our history and knowing our culture, and a lot of answers on how to navigate difficult situations, man. But the ultimate answer is together. We came through shit together. The ones who didn't, and this is like in terms of like evolution. There's this false belief that it's like survival of the fittest, that like whoever's the biggest and most aggressive are the ones that won and produce the most mates and so on and so forth. But that's not true, really, almost of any species. In some sense, there are elements of truth in that, but especially in higher mammals and primates particularly, the ones that survived were the ones that were most cooperative and most communal. And then within that, there are hierarchies and structures, In humans and a lot of primates, there's like the one strong man, and then the tribe, and ultimately they just do. You go along with what the strong man says, and that's part of why we have so much psychopathy, I believe, at this point, because of that factor. Having one leader for every 10 or 12 followers, ish. Talk about the tribe, the little tribes in the villages. So when the person claiming power, the person grabbing power happens to have no moral conscience or ethics, then things get bad for a whole lot of people really fast. And like the studies that they did in the 60s and 70s, most people would go along with what an authority says, even up to the point of killing somebody or causing like massive and irreparable harm. Like when they were giving the I forget the name of it, Ingram, maybe Milgram studies or something like that. But when they were giving shocks to people and said, keep going, even when the people clearly didn't want to, and the person, even though they were actors, the person on the other side of the screen looked like they were in agony or had like passed out and fallen to the floor. And the scientists say, no, you need to keep shocking them. They gave the wrong answer. It's important for science. Like 85% of people will do this up to the point of death and murder, as we saw, because they were trying to figure out why everyone went along with this in World War II. Those numbers haven't changed, dude. 95% of people are still just going to go along with whoever says. When push comes to shove, especially when they create another freaking crisis, another false flag and whatever else they've got going on. But cooperation, community, connection, these things are powerful. So you see it's a double-edged sword, you know. We go along to get along, but then that can lead us into fucking destruction. That can lead us into like not following our conscience, not following our ethics and our morals, and hurting people, you know, either inadvertently and you know, rationalizing it later. That's the luck of the draw. Or for some people that become pathological and start to enjoy that. They start to enjoy power and power over others and hurting other people and so on and so forth. And then you get the cluster B disorders. Yay. Anyways, I don't know, I got a little rambling. I'm just like barely drinking coffee right now. I'm praying and meditating, and my Wi-Fi is acting all funky because somebody doing something. And they think they're fucking slick, but you know, whatever. Shit's coming out. Happy Ireland Day. Happy Irish Day. St. Patrick is kind of well, Catholicism and Roman Empire and Christianity are not, obviously. Were not good things for a lot of Native people around the world, including the Celts. Although it did, you know, Catholicism mixed with the native religions and traditions in some cases. In many cases, just wiped it out, like what they did, and what they do everywhere. Religion is such an interesting thing too. Double-edged swords, man, everywhere. Everywhere you turn, it seems like there's a fucking double-edged sword, ready to swing and poke and do what swords do. It's better to be the one holding it, I guess, and to have wisdom and restraint and understand what's going on. There's going to be swords flying around. Might as well have one in your hand, right? Love you guys.